Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today we're going to talk about my least favorite episodes of Doctor Who, at least at the moment. It's a very fluctuating list, and there may be one or two I'm just not thinking about at the moment when I was going through making my 10 list, and plus I just haven't seen all of Classic Who, especially the Hartnell era, so there's probably some I haven't seen that might make this list. But just at the moment, when I was working on the list, these were the 10 that came up as my least favorite. So let's get started. Why did they do that? Why did they even try to do that? That's my first thoughts with Power of Krull. Now, this one, again, is probably not a surprise to anyone. Most of you probably expected this story, rightfully so. Most of you know I don't like this one. Yeah, I don't even get why they attempted to do this story. Even Robert Holmes, from what I understand, said, this is a bad idea. We shouldn't do this. Doctor Who does not have the budget to pull this story off. There's no way this is going to come out good. But, he wasn't the script editor at the time, so he had to kind of just do what he was told. They were like, you're going to do this, Robert. And he was like, ugh. Maybe this is why Robert wouldn't come back to write for Doctor Who for a while. Did he come back before Caves of Androzani? I can't remember if he has a story between this and Caves of Androzani. Maybe he does, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. Maybe that's why he left for a while. He's like, good lord. But yeah, this one's just awful. The squid effects are terrible. With them having to marry the model shot to the actors, it's always got that horizontal plane. That's such a dead giveaway. The people in the green is not well realized. It's just not well executed. It's directed by the same guy who did Underworld, and those are the only stories he did, and he just wasn't good at directing Doctor Who. Like I said, it's the only episode that Tom just can't save. It's the only Tom Baker episode that I never want to see again. It's just awful. It's my least favorite Tom Baker story. It's the only bad Tom Baker story where I feel like Tom Baker can't save it. Because usually, even a story that's not so great of his, I still love Tom in it. Tom elevates it. Or either that or it's like Horns of Nimon, where it's just so campy silly that it's still fun to watch. Power Crawl is just awful. There is a song about Johnny Ringo. They'll play it over and over again. You will stare long and hard at your screen and go, I can't get it out of my head. Delta and the Bannermen. I don't hate this story, and I could see myself going back and rewatching it in 5 or 10 years, but I don't really like it much. I don't know why. It just doesn't jive with me. I like the villain in it, but the story, the little place the resort they're going to is obviously this old broken down place that has seen better days, which if you watch the making of, that's the truth. I think most of the actors are fine. I don't like that the busload of people die, because that kind of comes out of nowhere. They just blow up and they're gone, and I'm like, oh, wow. And it's all because the one guy dropped the first crystal that the doctor had to replace. If he hadn't been clumsy, everybody would have got away. So the bus driver killed everybody, basically. And then seeing Ken Dodd get shot and killed, it's got a violent tone for it. That and the 50s music doesn't work for it. Or is it the 50s music that works and the incidental doesn't work? I forget. Some of the music works for it. Some of the music doesn't work for it. And I don't remember which is which. I just remember watching it. And part of the music, I'm like, yeah, I don't really care for it. I don't hate it, but I don't really care for it. Claws of Axos. I just think it's bad. I like Roger Delgado in it, especially since he's having to work kind of off the cuff here. He doesn't have time to have everything planned out 20 moves ahead like he does in Terror and Mind of Evil. And he's a little more calm in it. This one he's a little more frantic because he's having to improvise, and I loved the difference in how Delgado portrays him. I just love Delgado. He's so good. So the episode wins for that, and I like the FBI agent who's tracking the Master down. I think the actor does a really good job with that. I like the Axonites when they're in the Krynoid outfit, the one that would later be reused for the Krynoids. That's a cool design, and I love it. But the 70s retro vibe of the Axons in their disguise outfits and the look of their ship, And the story, I just don't really, it doesn't, I just don't like Claws of Axos. It's probably the only story of season 8 I just don't like at all. I don't click with it. I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. This is probably the one that people are going to get cross with me about, because I know a lot of people tend to like the story. I just don't get into Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Maybe on a rewatch. I've watched it once, but, you know, just watching McCoy being silly at the end. You know, anytime people are, you know, people criticize the Seventh Doctor as being campy, and he's not. He's not very often. The Seventh Doctor is great. He really is the chess master. But then some people who defend him are like, well, he's only campy in Time and the Ronnie. I can point to this one and go, well, he's a little silly here too. That whole bit where he's distracting the gods is just that, and the little like Dr. Livingston-like professor character just seems like he's there for no reason. And the actor just looks like he's bored to be there. I find him just, I feel like he pulls away from the episode. I like the werewolf girl. She's cool. I like her. And I like the guy playing the clown. He's good. I find the story uninteresting and the end result uninteresting. I just like, mentally, I'm checking out. I find some of the stuff going on neat, but mentally I'm checking out. I think this could be one of the most overrated stories in all of Classic Who, in my opinion. I don't like Kenda. The original Snake Effect is terrible, but the CGI version really does improve it. Just the story itself doesn't interest me. Like, seriously, I don't care. This whole story, while it's going, I'm sitting there going, I don't care. You ever have that friend that just prattles on about something, and like you're trying to be nice, but you're like mentally checked out because you just don't care? I don't know what it is they could be prattling on about. And then my grandmother's mole on her back, and you're like, Jesus God, just get through, and you're trying to right. Or you're on the phone with them, and you're trying to get off the phone, right, yeah, right. And then they get their second win, and you're like, ah! That's how I am with this episode. I just don't care. The whole time I'm watching Kenda, I'm just uninterested and don't care. I'm like, why am I still watching this? Why haven't I turned it off yet? I have no desire to ever go back and watch Kenda again. I'm sure I will at some point, but I have no desire to anytime soon. You can pretty much just rewatch the previous segment on Kenda. It's the exact same. I don't care about Black Orchid. I love the location footage because the film elements survive and it looks gorgeous, but I don't care. I just don't care about Black Orchid. I tend not to like when it does the, oh, look, there's someone that looks just like someone, you know, like, oh, look, there's someone that looks just like the Doctor. Oh, look, there's someone that looks just like Nyssa. I don't like the stories where one of the main characters has a person who looks exactly like them. Now, to be fair, I like Enemy of the World because the story is strong enough, it bolsters it, and Troughton's performance is so good and nuanced when he's playing all these different people, and these people playing the opposite person is really, really good, so that makes up for it. And Meglos I like because it's actually part of the plot. It actually serves the plot, why Meglos looks like the Doctor. But in this one, it's just a coincidence, and I don't really care for the story. I don't understand why people like Black Orchid. I just find it boring and uninteresting, to be honest, but the location work looks great. Warriors of the Deep. It's the ending. I need to rewatch this one. To be fair, I've only watched it once. It deserves a rewatch. I didn't mind most of it, but that ending is so on the nose. Literally that last line, there should have been a better way. I was just like, it was like Orphan 55. Even though Orphan 55 had a lot of its problems, that ending speech of Orphan 55 kills whatever hope Orphan 55 had. That ending speech ruins it. It's the same way with Warriors of the Deep. Warriors of the Deep is the classic version of Orphan 55. Ruins it. That there should have been a better way. And the way Davison says it doesn't help either. It's so on the nose, because that's the point of the story. And it's like it doesn't give the audience enough credit to figure that out. I mean, I had that figured out before he said it, and then he said it. It's like, just to make sure you didn't know, there should have been a better way. Yeah, I get it. I know. Just ruin the whole story for me. Ruin the whole story. It's more the acting than the story. The basic parts of the story, I think, are fine. I mean, there's some of the subplots going on in it are unnecessary, but the basic overall story, the A plot, is fine. I actually like that. Some of the costume designs I like. The little slug creature, I think that the creature design is realized really well for Classic Who. It's the acting. Of course, the twins' acting is awful. We all know the twins' acting is terrible. But for me, Colin's acting. Colin has this bad habit of doing this theatrical acting that is so over the top. It's just, as someone who was a theater major, it just stands out at me, and it's so bad. You cannot put me on trial. I am the Lord President of Gallifrey. You know, he does that very thing, which on the theater stage looks great, but on a television stage and for camera work, it's so over the top, it's eye-rolling sometimes. Don't you understand, Perry? Colin Baker's the only actor I know who can be that over the top without saying anything. Look at some of his cliffhanger shots from Trial of a Time Lord. You just look, when it does the close-up of his face, and he's just... It's over the top just in those shots, and he's not even saying anything. One of the reasons I think Colin Baker works so well in Big Finish, and I love Jubilee, I've heard Jubilee, and I hear a lot of his stuff in Big Finish is good, is because you can't see him. And I love Colin Baker. He's great on the behind-the-scenes stuff. I love him to death. I love watching him on Behind the Sofa and on the DVD extras. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. But he works better with Big Finish because you're only hearing his voice, and his voice is amazing. You can't actually see him because when he's on the screen in the show, whew, he is all over the screen with that overperformance and that overacting, and it's just grating to me. And for me, it's part of what hurts his era and part of what hurts this story especially. He's very over the top in this story. So that's really my biggest problem with it. And one quick honorable mention, I'll say the Leisure Hive. Though to be fair, the Leisure Hive is perfectly watchable. I don't enjoy the Leisure Hive, but when I go back to watch season 18, I do include it in the watch list. I don't just skip past it and go to Megalos. It is good for the occasional, once a year even, once every 2 years watch. It's not good, and I don't really care for it, but it's perfectly watchable. So that's my thoughts on that. I would like to know what you think of this list. There are a couple others I could have mentioned, like the Dominators isn't that good, but I love Troughton in it. Troughton saves the Dominators. But let me know what you think of these stories and what list you would go with and why you feel the way you do. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon if you would like to contribute to that. There is a list of that. There is a link to that down in the description below. Boy, that one's really getting away from me. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description below if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to check that out, see if there's anything there that interests you. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.